Most of what you see and hear around you, not only when you turn on your TV set or your radio, but when you simply walk down the street, most of this is based upon theories that are designed to drive you stark raving mad. Today, American culture is dominated by a group of theories which can be usefully lumped together under the term postmodernism. These include all manner of so-called political correctness, multiculturalism, Afrocentrism, post-structuralism, deconstruction, different, often hostile ideologies. But they all share a core philosophy. Stripped of the jargon, postmodernism is really very old stuff and can be traced to the racist ideology of Aristotle. But the proximate origins of the philosophy that we're dealing with today can be traced to three sources: the proto-Nazi 19th century philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, the card-carrying Nazi 20th century philosopher Martin Heidegger, and the nominally communist philosophers of the so-called Frankfurt School. And no postmodernist of today would disagree, no matter what stripe they are, with this characterization of their ideology. The purpose of all postmodernist theory is to create what Georg Lukacs, the founder of the Frankfurt School, called the culture of pessimism. That culture, art, music, literature, and the banal, popularized versions of that we call entertainment, could be turned into a weapon of social control if, and only if, the optimism which is inherent in Western Judeo-Christian civilization could be subverted. Back in 1922, Lukacs was commissioned by the Communist International to figure out why Bolshevism had not succeeded beyond the borders of Russia. He and the group of Marxist theorists, which he gathered together in Frankfurt, Germany, determined that the problem was, to make a very long story short, that the West still had the concept of a soul. That is, despite the pessimism that was widespread amongst cultural elites, especially after the collapse of the United States as a moral superpower after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Despite this pessimism, there was a countervailing tendency, an optimistic tendency within Western civilization. The West still taught that the individual had a soul, a divine spark of reason, that through the exercise of reason, the individual could discern with ever greater clarity God's plan of creation, which meant that no matter how bad things got, there was always the hope that mankind could solve its problems. Now, the Frankfurt School determined that this optimism could not stand if there were to be revolution in the West. As Lukacs, the founder of the Frankfurt School, wrote at the time, people must become convinced that they live in a world that has been abandoned by God, and that their only hope is revolution. And now in this, Lukacs was echoing very consciously the sentiments of his acknowledged forebear, Friedrich Nietzsche, who had written, and I quote, "We must give the coup de grace to that other and even more fatal atomism that Christianity has been teaching, the atomism of the soul. Let us be permitted to use that term to denote the belief that regards the soul as something ineradicable, eternal, indivisible, as a monad. That belief must be thrown out of science," unquote. Now, Nietzsche's specification of Leibniz's concept of the monad is crucial here. For all postmodernist theory, from Nietzsche on, depends absolutely on the denial of the individual sovereign power of creative reason